Okay, good evening everybody. So there are books available for everyone who wants. Okay, there are books in the back if anyone wants. We are going to be doing today lesson 4. Last week we did most of lesson 1, and this week we're going to be skipping, we're going to be doing lesson 4. We are going to be following the order of Tanya, because the course doesn't follow order. Lesson 2 of the course is perek Zayin, and lesson 3 of the course is the end of perek Vav. Lesson 4 is the middle of perek Vav. I don't want to explain why right now why the course doesn't follow the order of Tanya. There's a reason for it. But upon we're following the order of Tanya. In the order of Tanya, in the first part of perek Vav, which we spoke about last week, was the Alter Rebbe speaking about the importance of simcha and just how dangerous atzvos, negative emotions are, and how maintaining a state of positive emotions constantly is vital for a person's avodas Hashem. And the most dangerous thing that a person can do is have atzvos. That's it's the father of all sins, because when you have atzvos, when you're bogged down by negative emotions, so then you don't have the koyach, you don't have the energy, the fuel necessary in order to fight and do battle against the nefesh habahamis. That's what we spoke about last week. Today we're going to be talking about negative emotions that result from suffering, hardship, pain. We're in galus. There's no one who's immune to the difficulties of life. And suffering and hardship and tragedy, they themselves are not negative emotions, but they bring us to negative emotions. And it's not any one specific negative emotion, but there's a whole, you might want to say a whole package of negative emotions that come from these things. Some of them are sadness, helplessness, anxiety, fear, worry, frustration, anger, pain, jealousy sometimes even, jealous of others who we perceive to have that they're having an easier life. And the question that we're going to be talking about in today's lesson is, how do we maintain a state of simcha, a state of positive emotions, and stay away from atzvos when a person has real issues and has a difficult life in areas that are important. So we're going to start off text 1, which is on page 139, with a story which is a rather famous story. We'll read it inside. It's a story, the Rebbe actually says the story. It's quoted in Likkutei Sichos and Chelik Daled, and here's a adaptation of that story. A man once came to Rabbi, the Maggid of Mezrich, with a question. The Gemara tells us, the person asked, that a person is supposed to bless Hashem for the bad just as he blesses Hashem for the good. How is this humanly possible? How can a human being possibly react to what he experiences as bad in exactly the same way he responds to when he experiences what he experiences as good? How can a person be as grateful for his troubles as he is for his joys? So the Maggid answered, to find an answer to the question, you must go to my Talmud, Reb Zusha of Anapoli. Only he can help you in this matter. So Reb Zusha received his guest warmly, invited him to make himself at home, and the visitor decided to observe Reb Zusha's conduct before posing his question. Before long, he concluded that his host truly exemplified the Talmudic dictum that so puzzled him. He couldn't think of anyone who suffered more hardship in his life than did Reb Zusha. He was a frightful pauper. There was never enough to eat in Reb Zusha's home. His family was beset with all sorts of afflictions and illnesses. And by the way, what it doesn't say over here, but there's also a Masorah which you see between the lines of many of the stories. Apparently, Reb Zusha's wife wasn't the nicest person in the world also. Yet Reb Zusha was always good-humored and cheerful, and constantly expressing his gratitude to Hashem for all his kindness. But what is his secret? How does he do it? The visitor finally decided to pose this question. So one day he said to his host, I wish to ask you something. In fact, this is the purpose of my visit to you. Our Rebbe advised me that you can provide me with the answer. What's the question? Asked Reb Zusha. So the visitor repeated what he had asked for the Maggid. How is it possible to be Kabul Yisurim with Simcha, to be happy despite Yisurim? So Reb Zusha, after thinking the matter through, said, you raise a good point. And what did he answer? So it's not much of a suspense over here. I think everyone here pretty much knows the answer. He said, you raise a good point, but why did our Rebbe send you to me? How would I know? He should have sent you to someone who has experienced suffering. By raise of hands, who here has heard the story before? Okay. By raise of hands, who here has an issue with this story? No one, we're Chassidim, we're like sheep to the slaughter. Okay, we hear the story and it's good, all is good. Questions for discussion. In your estimation, page 142, how is it possible for a mezusha to genuinely feel that he had never experienced suffering? What does that mean? Number two, Reb Zusha was a holy man. Is this remarkable attitude sustainable for ordinary people? And if yeah, is this a desirable, a normal and healthy attitude for the average person? But really, what does that mean? He was poor. Illness, all other tzaddis. What does it mean that he never experienced suffering? He was so oblivious? What's going on? And also, I guess so the better question is, if we are told this story, we're told this story, the Rebbe tells us the story, there's some sort of lesson in life for us. And I mean, it would seem that this is much more than a simple gamzu l'toiva, right? This is well beyond that. And what does it mean, and how is it possible for a person to experience such kind of suffering and not to understand the question? So that's something that we're going to explore in the class. We are going to be talking about...
It's a little problem here, though.
Sorry?
Allow me to ask a question.
Sure.
He said, "Shemoroch al rock, shemoroch al toivo." But if it was no war, Abzushi was nothing was bad. I mean,
How is that possible that nothing is bad?
I mean, somebody else it feels bad about something.
But how is that possible? What is it? How is it possible, humanly possible, that you suffer in life and you don't experience it as bad? What does that mean?
I understand it, but it's not what the Talmud is saying.
I think that as Chassidim, we have a certain attitude when we hear a story about a Rebbe, so we disassociate immediately. Yeah, of course, the Rebbe didn't really...
No.
But what does it mean?
The Losh of Roch al rock, shemoroch al toivo means that there's a war, the experience.
Right.
He didn't experience anything negative.
I get that.
So he cannot do the mitzvah of Roch al rosh al toivo. He wasn't a
So you're asking another question, Michal, so the Maggid shouldn't have sent him to Michal.
No, the Pshat in Gemara I'm asking.
Okay, I think that as we continue the lesson, I think things will clarify. Okay, the questions are fine and are encouraged. So we're going to be talking about the attitude we're supposed to have towards pain and suffering. I guess the first thing that I should say over here, maybe if we have time we'll talk about a little more later on, but the first thing is everything that we learn about today, we are meant to apply it to ourselves and to ourselves only. This is the attitude that we're supposed to have when chas v'shalom, we ourselves experience something which is adversity, something negative. We don't apply this to other people for reasons that maybe or maybe not we'll talk about later, but I'll come on, that's an important thing to understand. You don't go over to someone else and say, you're having difficulty and pain and suffering. Yeah, it's all good. Why, let's dance a little together. We have a different, but we're talking here about ourselves. Okay. Now, the goal of our lesson over here is we need, which is the overarching goal of this entire section of Tanya, is how to get rid of atzvus, negative emotions. So the problem with pain and suffering is that it causes negative emotions. But lurking in the background over here is not an emotional question, but a philosophical or an intellectual question, which is the famous issue, what we call theodicy, or what we say, why do bad things happen to good people? Why does Hashem allow for suffering? Now this is a theological question, but it's going to be a very important question for us to answer, because even though that the issue over here is emotions, but if we can't understand why something is happening, then we can't have, because our suffering very much depends on our understanding. They say the muscle of a doctor who took a pin and stuck it into the arm of a stroke victim. And the guy yelped in pain. He said, "What are you doing?" And the doctor has a big smile on his face. He says, "You're hurting me and you're smiling?" He said, "Yeah, I've done this every single day for the last 8 months. You never felt it. I'm so excited that you're finally feeling it." So it's all about context. It's all about context. In other words, there can be pain and suffering. And by the way, had that guy realized what's going on, he also would have been excited, even though he's feeling pain. In life, we have a lot of pain in life. And a lot of the pain in life, you might want to say, is self-inflicted. I don't mean that in a negative way. Take someone who goes to medical school and spends a few years being an intern and being a resident and sleeping 3 hours a night and with barely any parnasa and living. Why do they do it? They put themselves through discomfort and pain because they know that there's a teyelas. So we're able to put up with suffering and pain if we know that there's a reason for it. We understand that it's not random and it's not something which is. So having an understanding of what's going on is very important in order for us to be able to emotionally handle what's going on. So we're going to have to talk about that a little, Tanya. Why do bad things happen to good people? And by the way, we're saying why do bad things happen to good people? Maybe we'll revise that question later. So let's start with the words of the Alter Rebbe, text 2, page 143. The Alter Rebbe starts addressing this topic. The following is advice on cleansing one's heart of all sadness and every trace of worry about mundane matters, even about one's family, health, and livelihood. There's a well-known statement of our sages that just as we bless Hashem for the good, so should we bless Him for misfortune. The Talmud explains that we should accept misfortune with joy in the same way that we rejoice over visible and overt goodness. So the Alter Rebbe over here is talking about a person who is sad or worried or otherwise emotionally disturbed by Bani Chayim Mezayna. Bani Chayim means Bani is children. Whether a person Chas v'Shalom doesn't have children, sometimes the problem is that person does have children. I'm sorry. Sometimes Tzad is from children. Chaye, right? Health, and also including health is when someone who's near and dear passes away, and Mezayna, which is livelihood, and these are big ones. These are big issues. You know, sometimes if we're honest with ourselves and we think about some of the things that bother us in life, we realize that really we don't need the Alter Rebbe and Tanya to address these issues. Sometimes it's a matter of just thinking for a second and realizing that some of our urgent needs aren't really urgent needs, and we need them for status, to compete with our neighbors or their luxuries. Sometimes they're the result of certain expectations that we have. But then there are real things. The real things in life. Bani Chayim Mezayna are not. They're not jokes. It's not. They're not. How would you say? They're not expectations that are uncalled for. And there are people who suffer in these areas. People who don't have children. There are people who have health issues. There are people who don't have parnasa. So how are we supposed to be besimcha? So the Alter Rebbe quotes a Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? The Keshem Shemavarach Ala Toiva. The writer says you have to bench the Eibishter for the bad, just like for the good. The Kabuli besimcha. You have to be mekabel besimcha. But how is that possible? So this really goes back to the question we asked. You know, why do bad things happen to good people? But I don't really like that nusach of the question, because it sounds like to bad people, bad things can happen. It's just the good people that. But think about that for a second. As we're going to see soon, the Eibishter loves every single one of us like a child. If a person has a bad child, do they do bad things to their bad child? Why does the Eibishter do bad things? Period. To anyone. But this is the idea which is going to be the yesod of everything that we're going to be talking about for the rest of this evening. The first thing that we have to understand is that the Eibishter loves us. We have this in many places in the Torah. The whole Shir HaShirim is devoted to describing this incredible love between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. The Navi Malachi expresses it in very simple words. Text 3a, page 144. Masad dvar Hashem el Yisrael biyad Malachi, ahafti eschem ambar Hashem. Talk about, sometimes you say a lot of words, sometimes short and to the point. Hashem's message to the Yidden delivered by Malachi, I love you, Hashem says. Ahafti eschem. Plain and simple, I love you. There's very few things more powerful than I love you. Eibishter tells us, I love you. And not only does Hashem love us, but the Eibishter's love for us is everlasting. Pasuk says, text 3b, from Yirmiyah. Yirmiyah says, Hashem appeared to remind me of the love He showed our ancestors in Egypt long ago, and He instructed me to deliver the following message. My love for you is eternal. Avas olam ahavtich. I therefore extend to you my loving kindness. Alkein mishachtich chased. The Eibishter loves us. How much does the Eibishter love us? On a scale from 1 to 10, how much does the Eibishter love us? So the Baal Shem Tov tells us, text 3c, Jeder Yid is tired by dem Eibishten, wie ben Yochid, was ist geboren geworden beim Älteren, le'esik nusam, und noch tighter. Hashem's love for each of us individually is comparable to the love that elderly parents have for their only child who was born to them in their later years, and even greater than that. What is so mind-blowing about this statement? Tells us about the extent of Hashem's love for us. Imagine an elderly couple, didn't have children for many years, finally have a single child. The love that tells us a little about the love that Hashem has for us, but there's something else which is very powerful, which not that many people notice over here. Yeder Eid is tired by the Meibishn. When we talk about Hashem loving us, generally those are the words we use. Hashem loves us. But how many people stop to think, Hashem doesn't love us? Hashem loves me. Individually. Not me as part of a larger, Hashem loves us, and because I'm part of the us, so therefore, obviously, I'm part of it. No, it's not us. Yeder Eid is tired. That doesn't say the Yidden seien tired by the Eibishter. The Yidden, Hashem loves them. Every Yid, you, me. I am as precious to Hashem as a child born to elderly parents or only child. And then he says, Unach tired even more than that. Why is that? So the Rebbe explains actually. The Eibishter is infinite. The Eibishter is Ein Sof. And therefore, his love for us, his love for me, his love for you is infinite also. The problem is that infinite love does not exist over here in this world. So the Baal Shem Tov had to find what is the greatest example that he could think of love. So he thought the greatest example that in the human realm is the love that elderly parents, childless for many years, they have a single child, that love. But really it's much greater than that. So how much does, on a scale from 1 to 10, how much does David still love me? No?
Infinite.
It's infinite, there is no scale,
11,
right?
11.
What?
11.
I want you. Right? Now, but I see there are some people who are parents. Think about that for a second. Think about the love that you have for your children. And realize that the love that the Eibishter has for you is much more than that. Your love for your children is a fraction of the love that the Eibishter has for you. It's a mind-blowing thought. Thinking about that. But actually, it's not only that Hashem's love is more than us, there's another very important difference. And that is, as much as I love my children, I don't control their destiny. I can't control what happens to them. A parent can't control if the child will be healthy or not. A parent can't control whether the child will be wealthy. A parent can't control whether the child will have a happy marriage or not. Certain things beyond their control. But if you could control all the circumstances, you would do everything to make sure that your child has only good. The Eibishter does control all the circumstances. So think about this for a second. Think about it for a second. Would you ever willingly allow something bad to happen to your child? What's the question? Of course not. The Eibishter loves you more than you love your child, infinitely more. Would the Eibishter ever allow something bad to happen to you? The answer obviously is no. And remember, the Eibishter controls all the circumstances. The Eibishter only controls them. The Eibishter is creating the circumstances at every single moment. So if I'm going to accept that the Eibishter loves me, the way that it's described in Malachi, the way it's described in Yirmiyah, the way the Baal Shem Tov describes it, and if I'm to accept that the Eibishter is all-powerful, then I have to reach one simple conclusion. It's like 2 + 2 = 4, which is that it's only possible for me to have two different types of experiences. I can have experiences that are good and feel good. I can have experiences that are good but don't feel good. But experiences that aren't good is not possible. Because the Eibishter loves me and the Eibishter controls everything. Or to put it in different words, there could be revealed good, there could be hidden good. But those are the only two options that are possible. And it's not only when I say something is hidden good, when you have an experience that doesn't feel good, it's not only that it is good, it is the best. Just think about it for a second. Let's say that a person is suffering and you say, oh, but it's good. There's something good in it. And we'll talk about that soon, what that means. 1 second. If there was another way to get that goodness with less pain involved, imagine yourself with your child, right? Imagine that your child needs something And there's a painful way for the child to get that benefit and a non-painful way. And you're like, what's make a difference? It's good. It's for his benefit. Let him have the painful way. He should be locked up for that, right? Sorry? Right? And the Eibishter loves us more than that, right? So obviously it's not only that what happens is good, it's the best. It's the best possible thing, because if there was a better way, the Eibishter loves us, he would have done it in a better way. And this taka without the Rebbe says, text 4, the Gemara explains that we should accept misfortune with joy in the same way that we rejoice over visible and overt goodness. Why? Because the misfortune is likewise for the good, gamzu l'teva, although its goodness is not apparent and visible to mortal eyes. Okay. So this is the Yesod. The Yesod of everything is the understanding that everything that the Eibishter does is good. How do we know it? Because the Eibishter loves us. And if he loves us, everything must be good. Sometimes it doesn't seem to be good. That's what we're going to have to talk about and figure out. And Abba say, why talk? It sometimes doesn't seem to be good. But the original foundation, hanach of our conversation is, everything that happens is for the good. But how can suffering and hardship be good? So what we're going to do today is we're going to have 4 different understandings of Gamzul Teva. And I need to tell you that understanding, what we're going to call them paradigm A, B, C, and D. Paradigms A and B are not in Tanya, because they are, like you might want to say, starter level, introductory level. The Alter Rebbe jumps straight, as we're going to see, to paradigm C. And the biggest chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, the main chiddush of perek Chavav, is going to be paradigm D. But in order to appreciate paradigm C and paradigm D, we're going to have to go through the simpler understandings of Gamzul Teva, and then we can get to the deeper understandings. What is paradigm A? So for this we have the very famous story in the Gemara. By the way, some of you might be familiar with the Sikha where the Rebbe talks about this, but I still think that the way it's, we're going to bring this out, it'll add clarity to it. The Rebbe brings down a famous Gemara. Text 5, page 146, a teaching that was attributed to Rabbi Akiva, that we should make a habit of constantly saying, whatever Hashem does is for the best. Kol ma'da'av d'rachmana l'tav avit. And this is illustrated by an incident in which Rabbi Akiva was traveling. He arrived at a certain city, and he sought lodging for the night, but no one was willing to host him. No, whatever Hashem does is for the best, Rabbi Akiva said, and he went to sleep for the night in the field. He had with him a rooster, a donkey, and a candle, and a sudden gust of wind extinguished the candle, a wild cat ate the rooster, and then a lion devoured his donkey. Now what does Rabbi Akiva respond? Obviously, Kol da'av d'rachmana l'tav, whatever Hashem does is for the good. During that night, an army attacked the city, taking all its residents captive. Rabbi Akiva later recounted this experience and told the students, did I not tell you that whatever Hashem does is for the best? So what is the idea over here? The idea is, in life, we sometimes see how pain and inconvenience leads to a greater good. Sometimes we know this in advance. A person who is ill is willing to undergo a medical procedure which can be very painful. But in advance, the reason why you know is because it's going to lead to a greater good. Sometimes we don't see this in advance. Sometimes we see it only in hindsight. We have many different examples of this in the Torah, right? The famous story, Yosef sold into slavery in Mitzrayim. Being a slave is a painful situation. But as we know, it led not only to being the king, but being able to save the whole region and save the family of Yaakov. The Yidden themselves, the Yidden going into Mitzrayim also, that was a painful experience. But what does the Torah tell us? The Torah tells us that Mitzrayim is a kur habarzon, and that's whatever, how you're trying to smelting something, which allowed us to be mekabel the Torah. Some of you might be familiar with the famous story of Yeshua ben Levi and Eliyahu Navi when he told him, I want to follow you around, and he said, only if you don't ask me any questions. I don't know, not the whole story, but again, illustrates this idea that you have painful circumstances that can lead to good, in hindsight, that lead to positive results. One interesting story, in 2015, so this is 8 years ago, there was a Yid in Eretz Yisrael, 31-year-old Yid, his name was Daniel Cohen. And he was waiting for a bus in the bus station in Rishon LeZion, and there was a terror attack. I don't know if you remember, when 8 years ago, it was a whole knife attacks. They come and they would stab Yid in Rahman al-Islam. Sure enough, this Cohen was attacked, and he felt an arm around him, and he was stabbed. Rushed to the hospital, and they had to do emergency surgery on him, on his spleen and on his liver. And as the doctors are operating on him, what do they find over there? early stages of Yana Maisa. Immediately they removed it, and ultimately this saved his life. The terror attack saved his life. In fact, when the terrorist was brought, he was caught and he was brought to trial, he tried to use that as a defense. Look what a good Samaritan I am. I saved this guy's life. Baruch Hashem, that didn't work for him. But the point is that there are times in life when in hindsight we see that something which was painful was good. So again, sometimes we see it in advance. Sometimes we see it only in hindsight. There's a famous Chassam Sefer about that, where he talks about the pasuk V'ray Isos Achoirai. The Moshe says, Hareini Nos Koidacham, which the Gemara understands, is Moshe saying, the Eibush, I want to understand why is there a tzaddik v'toivle, tzaddik v'rale, why does sometimes tzaddikim suffer? And the Eibush says, V'ray Isos Achoirai, you only see things from the Achoirai, from the hindsight, in the rear view mirror, because you don't understand things necessarily in advance. And sometimes we don't see it in the hindsight. But one thing's for sure, in Olam HaEmes, we always see. In other words, once the neshama gets up to Acher Me'ev Esrim, then definitely we look back and we realize, oh, everything led to a good place. There's a story about, there was a Rebbe, his name was Reb Shimon of Yaroslav, the Yaroslav Rebbe. He lived in the late 1700s, the early 1800s, and he had a Riches Yamim. And one of his Chassidim once asked him, Rebbe, why were you Zeichet in such a Riches Yamim? In the Gemara, we had different Tanoim and Amiroim, we were asked, why? So one of his, he said like this, I'll tell you the truth. He says, I have a lot of colleagues and they're gone. And the reason why is because when Tzaras came to their Chassidim with the Klal Yisrael, they would turn to the Eibishter and say, why? Why is this happening? Now after a while, the Eibishter says, you keep on asking why. Okay, come. I'll explain to you why. But over there in your world, you can't, he says, I never asked why. Because I never asked why, I'm still here. The Eibishter never felt the need to bring me to answer the question why. But the bottom line is, on Olam HaEmes, we're going to find out why. Right? This is, we said the Eibishter is our parent, and as parents we know this also. As parents, sometimes we subject our children to things that are painful, such as having to do homework, such as having to wake up and going to school. I have a traumatic memory of when my daughter was around 1 year old. She got dehydrated, and they brought her to the emergency room, and they had to stick the IV in her because the dehydration causes that the veins should become very brittle. So it took them like 10 minutes to find they kept on, and my wife couldn't handle it. My wife left the room, and I'm holding down my daughter who's screaming away, and they're sticking her with needles, right? But now she understands. So the same thing is also, the Eibishter is our parent, he loves us, but sometimes things are painful, but we have to know, it's always going to lead to a good place. So, this is the first understanding, the simplest understanding of Gamzul Teva, that ultimately everything leads to a good place. Does this understanding of Gamzul Teva, does this justify and explain the answer of Reb Zusha? No. Why not? Because what does it mean? It means I'm in pain, I'm in suffering, but I have a munah, I believe that it's leading me to a good place. If this was where Reb Zusha was, he couldn't have said, I never suffered. He would have told him, he would have sat him down and said, hello, yeah, Taka, our Rebbe sent you to me for a good reason, because Taka, believe me, I've suffered a ton in my life, but I want you to know the reason why I'm besimcha is because I have this ironclad emunah that Gamzul Teva, that all is for the good. That's not what happened. It was just I never suffered. That's not this. So obviously we need to continue in our journey to find out what Reb Zusha meant when he said that he never suffered. And that's going to lead us to paradigm B. What's paradigm B? Is the other story that Rebbe says in the Sikha, and that's the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu. Let's do this inside. Text 6 from the Gemara. People refer to Nachum as Ish Gamzu, the Gamzu guy, because whatever happened to him, he would respond Gamzu L'Teva. This also is for the good. Once the Jews needed to send a gift to the Caesar, they told each other, who should go to Rome bearing the gift on our behalf? And they said, let us send Nachum Ish Gamzu because he regularly experiences miracles. They sent him off with a chest filled with precious stones and jewels. On his way, he stopped off at an inn for the night, and during the night the innkeepers removed all the precious stones and jewels and refilled the chest with soil. They didn't want him to feel the weight change. The next morning, Nachum realized what had happened, but he simply declared, Gamzu L'Teva, this also is for the good. When he arrived at the Caesar's palace and presented his gift on behalf of the Yidden, they opened the chest and saw it was filled with soil. The Jews are mocking me, roared the Caesar. He was about to execute Nachum and the Jews who accompanied him, but Nachum simply declared, Gamzu L'Teva. Eliyahu suddenly appeared before the Caesar, disguised as one of his ministers, and he told the Caesar, perhaps this soil was the kind that their ancestor Abraham used in battle. Because he threw earth at enemy armies and it turned into swords that fell upon his opponents, and he threw stubble and it turned into arrows. No, the Caesar was eager to try it out. There was a province that the Romans were unable to conquer. They tested the soil by throwing it at their enemies, and thereby conquered that province. In gratitude, the Caesar instructed that Nachum's chest be refilled with precious stones and jewels from the royal treasury. They sent him back home with great honor. Now, superficially, it seems this is just another example of Gamzlo Tova. This doesn't seem substantively different than the story of Rabbi Akiva. But the Rebbe says it is very, very different. What's the difference between the story of Nachum Ish Gamzu and the story of Rabbi Akiva? Let's see what the Rebbe says. Text 7. There's a distinction between the stories of Rabbi Akiva and Nachum Ish Gamzu. Rabbi Akiva suffered loss and pain. He lost his donkey and rooster. He sat in the dark and he spent the night in the field. True was for the sake of a positive outcome, but the experience itself was painful. By contrast, Nachum Ish Gamzu never suffered any harm. To the contrary, if he had presented precious stones and jewels, it is uncertain whether the Caesar would have valued the gift. After all, there's no shortage of precious stones in the royal treasury. The soil that he brought, on the other hand, was indeed greatly appreciated. Rabbi Akiva endured hardship, but that hardship speared him from far greater hardship. Nachum Ish Gamzu, his experience was itself a positive one. Let's put it in some different words. Had Rabbi Akiva known before everything, had he known exactly how the story would unfold, would he have had any pain? Yeah. He lost his donkey, which is objectively a loss. He lost his rooster. He sat in the dark. He couldn't learn Torah that night. He slept in the field, which is uncomfortable. You know, when we heard the story the first time, or when we saw it in the puppet theater or whatever, so okay, sleeping in the field, that's exciting. We get to camp for the night. But then you grow up, you realize, and Rabbi Akiva wasn't a young person, right? He only became, when he was 40, right? Sleeping in the field at night is not a simple thing either. He suffered. Elamad, this suffering is worth it. But even had he known in advance that he's sleeping there and everything's going to happen, so he shouldn't be taken captive, it doesn't mean that he wasn't suffering. It just means that he'd be able to accept the suffering, tolerate it, because understanding that this suffering is saving him something. But Nachum Ish Gamzu, what did he suffer? Nothing bad happened. The only thing that bad that could have happened wasn't perception. That a person seeing the story thinks that it's a bad thing. But had he known in advance what's going to happen, it was like, oh, that's great. I have here gold and silver and coins, right? But this maybe will make the king happy, maybe not. Oh, bring the earth. That's what I want. That's the good thing. There's no suffering over here. The story, and I was working on this lesson, so speaking to some people about it. So there's a guy who worked for JLI, his name's Elishevitz from Eretz Yisrael. He said a story about his grandfather. His grandfather's name was Rabbi Yaakov, and he was a soldier in the Russian army during World War II. And he was one of the defenders of Stalingrad. And one time there was an air raid by the Germans, and everyone's running for cover, and they have different bomb shelters, bunkers, whatever you call them. And he's running because the planes are dropping bombs, and he sees there's a bomb shelter, but there's place for only one other person. Baruch Hashem, he goes in. A minute after he gets there, big burly Kazakh comes, says, "You Jid, you out," and he goes in. What can he do? Goes running for his life. 30 seconds later, a bomb direct hit on that bunker, and everyone in that bunker was killed. Maybe that Kazakh was Leo Navi, and that saved his life. But what's interesting is, he's being pulled out and he's thinking, oh my gosh, it's the most horrible thing. But did anything bad really happen? No, nothing bad happened. The only thing that happened was, in his perception, he thought something bad happened. But once you see the story done, you realize nothing bad happened. Rabbi Akiva can't say that. Rabbi Akiva, looking back at the story, can't say nothing bad happened. He can say that whatever bad happened was worth it. That's paradigm B. So if you look over here at figure 4.1, and 4.1a, page 152, we see over here, the Jewish view of hardship and suffering. Paradigm A is, hardship leads to greater gain. Paradigm B is, hardship is goodness in disguise. Now, big difference in these two things. Think about it for a second. In paradigm A, does negativity exist? Yeah. Elama, Yerida Tzairach Aliyah. But is there idea of Yerida? Absolutely. Is there Chayshach? Is there bad? Yeah. But whatever is bad serves something which is good. In paradigm B, there is no negativity, there is no Chayshach. In paradigm A, when something bad is happening, you have to have your eyes checked and say, well, it's not really what I think it is. No, it is what you think it is. Elama, it's going to lead to something great. In paradigm B, if something bad is happening, you have to have your eyes checked. You have to know your perception is pashut wrong. Va'iker, in paradigm A, when we're suffering, we tolerate it because we know it's going to lead us to a greater gain. In paradigm B, we don't tolerate it, we can appreciate it. Because we can realize it's not something suffering I have to tolerate, it actually is good. There's something just wrong with my perception, as you see in figure 4.1b, how all of this is laid out. Does paradigm B explain Reb Zusha's behavior? His response? If I'm going to say that everything really is good, would that justify his response? Also not. Why? Because then he would have said, listen, I've suffered a lot in my life, but I recognize that my perception is wrong. And really, it seems to be bad, but really it's good. So that also doesn't explain the Reb Zusha. So now we need to move to paradigm C and D, which are going to be, as we'll see, related to each other. And this is where we're going to move back into Tanya perek Chavav, because again, as I mentioned, the Alter Rebbe starts halfway up the mountain. We just gave you the first part of the mountain, and now we're going to start the climb together with the Alter Rebbe. But to do that, we need to first talk a little about the relationship that the Eibishter has with creation. We know that Ba'asara Ma'amaris Nivra Elam, the world was created with 10 utterances. What's the significance of the number 10? So you all know, the world was created with the tools of the 10 spheres. The 10 spheres are made up of Chabad, Chachma, Bina, and Das, and then there is the Midas and Malchus. Just like it is by ourselves, that everything begins in the mind. Meaning, in the mind is where you develop your plans, your reasons, your goals, your objectives, everything is in your mind. And the same thing is by the Eibishter. The whole plan for creation, and the reasons for it, everything starts off in the Eibishter's mind. Once the Eibishter, that's all set, we have the plans, now it's time to put the plan into motion. How does the plan get put into motion? And that's where the Midas and Malchus, the Midas are the actual energies that are in the world, which is why the world was created in 7 days. And it's all funneled through Malchus, because Malchus is speech, and we know that everything, Basar Mamaris, everything was created through speech. And in Kabbalah, this is known as Alma de Iskasia and Alma de Iskalia. Hashem's Seichel is known as Alma de Iskasia, is the hidden world, and Hashem's Midas and Hashem's Dibur, his emotions, and his speech is known as Alma de Iskalia, the revealed world. Why is that? Because where does a relationship begin with someone outside of ourselves? Not in our mind. You can't have a relationship in your head. Relationship begins in the heart. I can have all my thoughts and my ideas, my plans, but that's all me living in my head. When I start having a feeling towards someone else, and obviously when I start acting towards someone else, that's where the relationship begins, which is why it's called the revealed world. Where do I reveal myself to someone else? In my midas, in my emotions, and in my behavior. My mind is my world. What does all this have to do with hardship and suffering? So let's look at what Rebbe says in text 8, page 155. For this also is for the good, Gamzu L'Toiva, except that it is not apparent and visible to mortal eyes, because it stems from the hidden world that is higher than the revealed world. The Rebbe is telling us over here that whenever we have an experience that appears to be a negative experience, it means it is coming from the Alma Discassia, it's coming from the hidden world. And whenever we're having a positive experience, it comes from the revealed world. Remember what we said earlier, everything that happens is good. The question is, what is the source of the goodness? If it's a goodness that we experience as good, that means it's coming from the revealed world. If it's coming from, and if it's experience that we can experience as goodness, that means it comes from the hidden world. What does that mean in simple language? Whenever you have two entities that are drastically separated from each other in terms of the level of wisdom, experience, so then when the higher entity wants to do goodness and kindness with the lower entity, there are two ways for him or her to do it. One is on their own terms, and one is on the terms of the giver, and one is on the terms of the receiver. So if you have a 3-year-old kid and you want to give them a gift, so you can give them a candy, or you could take $20,000 and put it in their shlichus fund, in a bank account for when they go out on shlichus. Which one is the bigger gift? Obviously the $20,000. Which one does the child appreciate? The candy. What is the difference between this one and that one? The difference is that one of them is on the terms of the mashpia. One of them is love and kindness on my level, and one is love and kindness on your level. By definition, always, when it's love and kindness on my level, if I'm giving it to my 2-year-old kid, my kid won't be able to appreciate it. Why? Because it's on my level. And I am so much wiser and have so much more experience. My kid's understanding of kindness is pretty much limited to something that tastes sweet in their mouth, or a set of Legos. They don't have that wide view. That's me and a 2-year-old kid. Imagine the Eibishter and us. The Eibishter also, when he does kindness for us, there are 2 different types of kindnesses he can do. There's a kindness that he does that we appreciate, and that's a Alma de Iskalia kindness. That's the revealed world. That is as the Eibishter is relating to us on our terms. And then there's sometimes David says, I'm doing a kindness, but this is coming from a much deeper place within me. This is not a kindness on your terms. This is a kindness on my terms. But you know what? Because it's a kindness on the Eibishter's terms, by definition, we're not going to appreciate it because we're not on that level. By the way, as a parent, what kind of kindness do we do to our children? Of which type? Sorry? The second one. Both. A parent that does only one and not the other is think about it. A parent that only does kindness on the level of the child. So that means that the kid that doesn't go to school and doesn't do homework and plays video games the whole day and eats junk. That's because that's what the kid appreciates. A parent that only does kindness on their own terms, that's a miserable childhood for the child. That means they're never enjoying anything because everything is with the ganze cheshbon, which they don't appreciate. The Eibishter is the same way. The Eibishter does kindness to us on both levels. There's the kindnesses that we appreciate, and that's the Alma de Iskalia kindnesses. And then there's the kindnesses that we can't appreciate. Those are the Alma de Iskalia, Alma de Iskalia. What is the advantage of paradigm C over paradigms A and B? Paradigm A was everything leads to something good. Paradigm B is that hardship is good. In other words, paradigm A, hardship leads to a good. Paradigm B is hardship itself is good. Paradigm C is hardship is a much greater good because it's Alma Discussia. So if we look in figure 4.1c in paradigm C, so what do we have over here? Our reaction to negative circumstances. Remember, the first one, paradigm A, we said we tolerate it. In paradigm B, we said we appreciate it. In paradigm C, what did we say? We rejoice. Not only we appreciate it, we can be sameach b'yisurim, understanding that it's actually a greater good. The very fact that I don't experience it as goodness is a raya that it must be a greater good. And by the way, this answers the question. So why does it have to hurt Tanya? Why can't the Eibishter give us kindness? Everything but teif hanir van nigla. The answer is, if we can appreciate it by definition, it's a shvacha kindness. Like, imagine your kid coming to you, 2-year-old, and saying, why can't you everything that your kindness to me, why can't it be something I appreciate? Because you're 2. No, are we getting closer to understanding the B'zush's response now? I think we're almost there. But we have one more paradigm. 10 minutes left. Perfect. Until now, the question that's bothering us is, I'm suffering hardship, pain, tragedy. What kind of benefit can this bring me? So we answer the question in 3 different ways. Paradigm A is, it'll bring me benefit. Paradigm B, it itself is good. Paradigm C, it's a greater good. But the entire discussion that we're having up until this point is framing hardship in the context of our good and our benefit. What benefit does it bring it to me? Paradigm D is going to take us to an entirely different place. And let's see how the Alter Rebbe explains it in Tanya. Text 9. Here the Alter Rebbe suddenly talks about the simcha that a person has b'yisurim. The joy a person experiences due to suffering is a consequence of one's desiring Hashem's closeness more than anything offered by life in this world. As it is written, for your loving kindness is dearer than life. The words of Tehillim, Ki toiv chaslecha mechayim. And the nearness of Hashem, Kirvas Alikim, Kirvas Hashem, is infinitely stronger and more sublime in the hidden world in Alma Diskasya. We're changing the conversation. Changing the conversation entirely. Here we have the pasuk Hitev Chaslecha Mechayim is David HaMelech. Kapitel Samach Gimel. David HaMelech is talking about B'Yeseh B'Midbar Yehuda. Why is he Midbar Yehuda? Because he's being chased by his by Shaul. They want to kill him, and he's far away from civilization. Tzam L'cha Nafshi, Kam L'cha B'Sari. And then what does David HaMelech say? Hitev Chaslecha Mechayim Sfasai Yishab Chunecha. Says to Hashem, ultimately I want you to understand, more important to me than everything, more important to me than life itself is chastecha, but here chastecha, the way the Alter Rebbe understands, it's not chesed as in your kindness, because what kindness was David experiencing at this moment? Your closeness, my relationship with you is more important to me than life itself. And therefore all the suffering to me, not important. And where is the relationship with Hashem the strongest? Is in Alma Diskasya. When we are receiving something from Alma Diskasya, which, as we know, Alma Diskasya is not comfortable. Alma Diskasya is painful. But ultimately, we're relating to a much deeper level of Hashem and a much closer relationship than when we're experiencing Alma Diskasya, when we're experiencing the revealed world. And therefore, the question really comes down to is, am I looking for gifts or am I looking for love? In paradigms A, B, and C, we were in the gift looking, we were in the gift seeking mode and trying to figure out what is the gift inherent in the suffering. And Alter Rebbe says, but you're missing the point. That's not the point. Think about it for a second. Imagine you decided to surprise your wife, for those who are married over here. And you want, that's it. You decided, you went to the jewelry store and you bought a $2,000 necklace. And you said, Stam, a dinstak, a middle, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, you come home and you give it to your wife, a gift. And she opens up the box and she's like, wow, a necklace, such a beautiful, this is exactly what I want. I'm so happy I have a necklace. This is amazing. I have a necklace now. Look at this. Look what I can wear it with. What's missing over here? What's missing over here?
It's temporary.
No.
To the husband.
Is it about the gift? Or in a healthy relationship, what does the wife say? Wow, I can't believe you got this for me. You care about me so much. The gift is an expression of the love. There's a vart, they say, don't think about the gift of the lover, think about the love of the giver. There's a tifkait there. When you get a gift, is the gift important or is the love important? It's the relationship that's important. If you're immature, you focus on the gift. Not that obviously you're going to enjoy the gift also, but if you're immature, the ikr to you is the gift. When you have maturity, the main thing to you is you're touched by the gift. If we're in a real relationship with the Eibishter, what we're really after is the relationship, is the love, the kirvas Hashem. And where is kirvas Hashem? Kirvas Hashem is an Alma Diskasya. Much more so than Alma Diskasya. Even though so bepashtos, candies we can give to any kid. The deeper love, you don't go putting $10,000 into the shlichus account of every kid in the shul. You don't have that. You don't have people walking around. You have candy men in shul, not the. Even, by the way, even the patch. You give your own kid a patch. You don't give the other kid a patch. Because a patch is a kind of a deeper love, which it's easy to give a candy. There's a deeper love in the Alma Diskasya. And if life is about, David HaMelech wasn't thinking about the gift, he was thinking about the love and the closeness that enclosed in the gift. And that is the ultimate level of how we deal with suffering, realizing that it comes from Alma Diskasya, which means that it's a greater gift, true. That's paradigm C. But even more important than the fact that it's a greater gift is where it's coming from. And this brings to mind a famous song of Levitsa Gabadichev. Maybe some of you know it, and I'm not going to sing it for you, but it's text 10. Rebbeinu Shalom, right? Ich will der Adudel spielen. I'm going to say it in Yiddish. You want those who don't understand Yiddish, you can read it in English. Follow along. Ana emtzaka Rebbeinu Shalom, v'ana lo emtzaka Rebbeinu Shalom. Avuzolach der gefinden Rebbeinu Shalom, und avuzolach der nicht gefinden Rebbeinu Shalom. Actually, for the people on the video, I'll read it in English. Where are you to be found, Hashem? And where are you not to be found? As Maila do, Mata do, Mizrach do, Mairev do, Daram do, Tzofim do. Up you are there, down that's you, to the east it's you, to the west you, to the north you, to the south you. Do, you. As es as good is doch do, when things are good it's you. Chalila nit eich do, and when they're not, that's also you. Un as do is doch good. And since it's you, it is good. Do, you.
They also say that I love Hashem, I really do.
Sorry?
The kid that is singing today, I love Hashem, I really do. And Hashem loves me too.
Yeah. No, but here these lines always struck me. Chalila nit, when things aren't good, it's also you. And if it's you, it's good. And he doesn't say, if it's you, then it must be that something good is going to come from it. If it's you, it's good. If it's you, it's a gift from you, and if it's a gift from you, it's with love, and I accept that, and I'm mekabel that. And that takes us to figure 4.1d, page 160. Now we have paradigm D, and we see hardship constitutes intimacy with Hashem. Negativity does not exist. Our perception of hardship is irrelevant. It doesn't make a difference. Are we right? Are we wrong? Is it hard? Is it? And our reaction to negative circumstances is that it is dearer than life itself. So again, up until this point, we're like, is suffering real? Is it in disguise? Is it? The ultimate way to deal with pain and suffering is not by reframing the suffering as something else, but by changing our goal and our focus on life. Our goal and focus on life is a relationship with Hashem. And now we can understand what Abzusha was saying when he says, I've never suffered in life. For most of us, when we're suffering, we're trying to think, is it bad, is it good, is it leading to something good? And Abzusha was in a different place. Abzusha was, by him, what was important was his relationship with the Eibishter. So what are you telling me about suffering in life? You're asking me, is it good, is it not good? It's irrelevant. That's not what's important to me. What's important to me is my relationship with the Eibishter. And here's what's important to understand. Actually, we can't talk about this now because I realized we didn't talk about it yet last week. So we're going to have to push this off till next week, what I want to talk about now. But I just wanted to say one thing. End off, I said if we have a moment before we end, we'll say this. We said that everything that we're talking about over here is about our avodah when we experience suffering. It's not about chas v'shalom when someone else suffers. What does that mean? When someone else suffers, it isn't l'tova. We don't believe all of these things when someone else is suffering. And the answer is yes. Whatever the Eibusher does is good, whether it's to me or whether it's to someone else. You know, otherwise it's quite arrogant. They're saying, well, whatever happens to me is good because Hashem loves me. But if you're suffering, oh, that's not good bad. The Eibusher doesn't love you. But no, it's good if it happens to you also, right? What's that? The question though is, what is my avodah? Meaning to say, if something, let's say I have a medical procedure, chas v'shalom, and it's a difficult one. What's my avodah? My avodah, I'm not even talking about my avodah and avodah Hashem. What is the practical, is asked of me, is to think, yeah, it's painful, but it's leading to a good place. That's my, what if someone's child is undergoing a procedure, and it's a painful procedure? So, should the father be by the bedside of the child saying, relax, what's your issue? It's for the good, it's for the good. No. If you're a parent, you're holding your child's hand, and you're crying with him or her, and you're commiserating in the pain. It's not your avodah to be thinking about the positive benefit, it's your avodah to be there for the other. The same thing is when it comes to every single other yid. When another yid is in suffering, numbers 20 seconds, when another yid is suffering, our avodah is to have Avos Yisrael to support them. Is it l'tova? Of course, but that's not our avodah to focus on that. When chas v'shalom, a person is suffering themselves, then that way the taka is to internalize this idea of gamzulat.